Hey Harmonizers, this is King Runaround. He's a little bit upset because I've got Elysia and Elon that are going to be loading up on the trailer, and he is wishing that he could come too. Don't worry though guys, he does settle down and settle down pretty quickly and ends up getting his breakfast, which makes him a little bit happier. But this is Elysia and Elon loading up, heading out on the trailer. A couple little trailering tips: when you have a bumper pull trailer like this, you always want to put the heaviest horse at the front. So even though you may think, oh, it'd be nice to put, Elysia in the back stall because it's got the most space, you want to put the heavy horse up at the front and leave the back stall empty if you only have two horses, because that's going to help the weight distribution and help it all haul a little bit nicer. You can see I'm taking my bucket in. I like to give my horses a really mushy, slappy breakfast on the trailer when they load. Just helps to make sure they get some moisture in their bodies and get a little bit of fiber in there. Helps keep everything moving, so that way my horses don't get colic or anything like that when we're out at the shows. Also gives them a nice little treat, so that way when they get on the trailer, it's like, oh, here you go, here's a nice little breakfast. Whatever we can do to help the trailer be a super nice little space for them to be, it's going to help them be nice little loaders. In this case, loading both my horses on the trailer there in less than 2 minutes, because the horses recognize the trailer as a happy place to be. So let's take a look at the horse show. This was an obstacle challenge at the Florida Horse Park. This was the first obstacle here, which was to trot through the water, go up the little hill, make a half turn, a 180 turn, and then trot through the water again. And this particular obstacle challenge had a bunch of different obstacles, all scored out of 10. So we were being scored on how well we did them and our horsemanship for each one. And each judge had 2 obstacles that they were watching, and they scored their obstacles, and then you basically go on to the next obstacles and you wait your turn to do the next obstacle. So it's kind of a neat way to do things, and the judge kind of explained what you were supposed to do at each one as you went around. So this obstacle, we needed to walk over the log, which Elysia starts to back up, I think because she's saying she wants to get a drink of water there initially, because once I kind of convince her that we're not laying down in the water, we're not getting any water, she steps over pretty easily. And then we were told to side pass our log, do a 360 turn, which is a full rotation, and then continue and side pass the log. So before we got to this point, I actually had Elysia out at the horse park, and we thought it started at 8:30, but it was the registration that started at 8:30, and the actual event didn't start until 10:30. So we had 2 extra hours, and what I used that time for was to film a bunch of videos for our new app that's coming out. So I'll be coming out on harmonyhorsemanshipacademy.com, and I'll share with you guys info once it's ready. But we were filming for that, so Elysia was already pretty tired, both mostly mentally, because physically I didn't work her too hard for the different exercises we were doing, but she was already kind of thirsty. We gave her a bit of a drink, and she'd already been working that morning. So when we got to the obstacle, she was doing really well, but you're going to see as she goes around through the different obstacles, the waiting time between each obstacle kind of worked against us, and eventually kind of towards the end, Elysia just kind of gets a little bit done and says, all right, enough is enough, can we please be done? This one here, the rope gate, no problem, she's being a total superstar, even with the little carpet there. Here is the L-shaped back up, where there aren't 4 poles, there's only 2 poles, and the goal is to back up and try to stay as close to those poles as possible with your little feetsies, which is considered 1 obstacle. And then after the back up, the second obstacle is to do the side pass on the inside of the poles, trying to keep your horse's back feet as close to the poles as possible. So having really fine, refined communication with your horse to understand where they're supposed to be. So you can see Elysia's actually doing a pretty good job with that, keeping her back feet pretty close there. There we drifted a little bit away from it, but overall she did really well. Really neat task to try, and you only need 2 poles, which is pretty cool. Here's the pinwheel, which for this level we needed to trot around, and then I kind of let my rein get a little bit too sloppy there, so we kind of go off to the side, but we managed to get that done accurately there, so I was pretty happy with that. Elysia was entered in the open division, so the hardest division that you were able to enter in, because she's done obstacle stuff last year prepping for the Thoroughbred makeover. So I felt like that would be the most fair, even though technically she qualified as a green horse, being that she was only in her second year of competing over obstacles. But I entered her in the open pro division anyways. And my surprise was that all of the obstacles were actually the same for green horse and pro. So you're seeing a lot of the same stuff that Elon had to do as well, doing the drop there onto the carpet. She did that really, really well. The only difference was that there was a couple obstacles where we were told to trot instead of the green horse, which was walking. These little things here are really challenging to go over all of the little wooden blocks. They're only about maybe 24 inches wide, so you have to be really targeted on where you're asking your horse to go. So we had to trot all of them, except for the last one we were told to walk, so showing a little bit of speed control there as well. The drag obstacle was also a timed obstacle. Had to kind of be careful here as I pull it out to make sure I don't knock over the barrel. If I knocked over any barrels or anything down, it would be considered faults, or points would come off. So it was important that I keep control of that drag at all times. But she did really, really well at there. Really happy with my handling skills there. Here's the trot poles where you go over, and then she started to give me a little bit of kind of a canter there as we came through to do our halt and then our back up here. And this is where she starts to kind of get a little bit fed up, because there's a lot of waiting between each of the obstacles. And so she's getting a little bit like, all right, let's get on with this. Let's hurry up and go and do things. And I can tell that because she's not wanting to stand still as much as she normally would, and just being a little bit more kind of sensitive or irritated to my cues a little bit. So in my mind, I know that she's starting to have the biscuit a little bit. We're almost done the course, so it's like, okay, come on, just let's hold it together. So we do all of the same bridges. We do our halt transition on the bridge, which she stands nicely for as we go off. She's not upset about any of the actual obstacles. She's just starting to get a little bit frustrated mentally because it's been a long day. And then of course the hardest obstacles are the last two obstacles. So this is where we're supposed to straddle the pole with our left legs on the left side of the pole and right legs on the right side of the pole, which she ends up kind of splitting her front legs a little bit there, and did really, really nicely there figuring that out. Weren't able to get all four at the same time. We're definitely going to have to practice that, because that is a pretty cool one. And then the last one here is going on to a tarp where you dismount your horse and you blindfold them and then pick up all 3 feet, which I was really surprised that the green horses had to do this too, because it really is a tough task. And Lissy has been blindfolded. She lets me trot her blindfolded, and she's really not worried about that. I blindfold her, and if I just was walking forward, she'd probably be okay. But the fact that she's a little bit kind of pulling and a little bit kind of done, she's not wanting to stand there and let me pick up her feet. So she's getting a little bit kind of antsy. So rather than have a bad experience, I just kind of trying to wait for her to get still for a second, and then I'm gonna take off the blindfold just to kind of say thank you for standing still. And then I decide not even to bother with picking up her feet, because I can just tell that she's kind of mentally done for the day. So we just walk out and we finish. So she did end up finishing in 5th place. She did a lot of her obstacles really, really well, and she actually was a total superstar for the day. So I'm super proud of my horses, and I hope you guys enjoyed seeing those different obstacles.